The sun represents the formation of identity within consciousness. In the Hermetic framework of Poimandres, the soul moves through successive spheres during its descent into embodied experience. Each sphere adds a distinct layer of perception, shaping how awareness organizes what it encounters. In the solar sphere, a specific structure emerges. Experience begins to organize itself around a central I. This I is not a thought in the usual sense. It is not an emotion or a belief. It is a structural assumption that experience belongs to a subject. A center appears through which all perception is interpreted. From this point, experience is no longer simply occurring. It is assigned. Thought becomes my thought. Emotion becomes my feeling. Action becomes my action. Memory becomes my past. Before this stage, experience can arise without a clearly defined center. Sensations, perceptions, and thoughts may occur without immediate ownership. After this stage, a continuous reference point is introduced. Every event is related back to an assumed identity. The sun governs this process of centralization. It does not create awareness itself. It organizes awareness into a coherent structure. It gathers the fragments of experience into a single narrative line that feels unified. This creates stability. Without this structure, experience would not be interpreted as belonging to a consistent entity. The solar function ensures continuity across time. It allows the sense of being someone to persist from moment to moment. In ordinary awareness, this continuity feels self-evident. There is a constant impression of being the same observer moving through changing conditions. This impression is rarely questioned because it is consistent and reliable. But consistency is not proof of origin. It is only evidence of structure. The solar sphere is this structure of continuity. It is the mechanism by which awareness is organized into a centered identity. It creates the appearance of a unified self by repeatedly referencing experience back to a single point of interpretation. This I is not found as a direct object within experience. It is inferred through the act of interpretation itself. It is constructed through memory, repetition, and linguistic reinforcement. Each moment of labeling strengthens the structure. I am thinking. I am feeling. I am seeing. I am deciding. These statements do not describe an observable entity inside experience. They reinforce a grammatical structure that places a subject behind events. Over time, this structure becomes assumed rather than examined. Hermetic teaching describes this stage not as a personality trait, but as a functional layer of consciousness. It is the formation of self-reference. Experience is filtered through the assumption that it is happening to someone. This does not require strong ego or pride. Even a quiet, minimal, or self-effacing identity still operates through the same structural mechanism. The strength of the identity does not matter. The structure remains the same. The key distortion of the solar sphere is not exaggeration of self, it is assumption of ownership. The belief that there is a central controller, witness, or owner inside experience who is responsible for it. If this structure is examined directly, it becomes difficult to locate. It is not seen as an object. It is only present as a pattern of interpretation applied to experience after it occurs. Thought arises first. Then it is labeled as my thought. Sensation arises first. Then it is labeled as my sensation. Perception arises first. Then it is labeled as what I see. The sequence is important. The center is not present at the origin of experience. It is introduced after the fact as a narrative interpretation. The solar sphere therefore functions as a reflective system. It takes continuous, non-centered awareness and reorganizes it into a story with a central figure. This creates orientation and psychological continuity, but it also introduces a sense of separation between awareness and what is occurring within it. Life is then experienced as something happening to someone, rather than as simple unfolding activity. In the Hermetic ascent, this layer is described as a garment, not an external object, but a patterned overlay placed upon awareness. It is worn because it organizes perception, not because it is inherently true. To recognize it is not to reject it. It is to see its function clearly. The goal is not the destruction of identity. Functional identity remains necessary for communication, coordination, and embodied action. The body still moves. The mind still processes. Language still operates. What begins to weaken is the assumption that there is a central owner of these processes. Instead, there is act. The solar sphere describes how a central identity is formed within awareness and how that identity organizes experience around itself. In this stage, the mind does not simply receive perception, it assigns ownership to it. Thoughts, emotions, and actions are gathered into a single reference point called I. This creates continuity. Experience feels unified because everything is interpreted through one assumed center. A sense of being someone develops, and that someone becomes the default lens for all perception. This is the key function of the sun. It brings coherence to experience by organizing it around a stable identity. At the same time, this organization introduces a structural distortion. The center is not directly observed. It is inferred through language, memory, and repetition. It is maintained through constant reference rather than direct perception. I am thinking. I am feeling. I am aware. Each of these reinforces the idea that there is an owner of experience located behind the experience itself. When examined closely, what is actually present is simply thought arising, emotion arising, sensation arising, and perception unfolding. The I is not found as a separate object within this flow. It appears as an interpretation placed onto it after the fact. This does not remove function. The body still acts. The mind still processes. Communication still happens. But the assumption of ownership is revealed as a layer added to experience, not the source of it. The solar structure is therefore not an entity. It is a pattern of interpretation. It organizes life into a narrative of me experiencing my world. This gives orientation, but it also creates separation between awareness and what is occurring within it. The key understanding from this stage is simple. Identity is not the origin of awareness. It is a construction within awareness that organizes experience into a coherent center. When this is clearly seen, the authority of the center begins to weaken, not because it is removed, but because it is recognized as a process rather than a truth. The next step is not analysis. It is direct observation of how this structure appears in real time. Watching how experience arises before it is labeled as belonging to someone. Not trying to change it, only seeing it as it is forming. In the upcoming meditation, attention will be placed on this movement directly. The shift will be from understanding the solar structure intellectually to recognizing it as it appears moment by moment in experience. The lesson becomes observation. The structure becomes visible as it forms, and the sense of a fixed center is no longer assumed automatically. Do not attempt to remove the I. Simply notice how often it is added. Notice how experience continues without needing it to be present in order to occur. This concludes the transition from conceptual understanding into direct observation of the solar field. Sit. Let the body settle without adjusting it repeatedly. Notice that experience is already present. Sound, sensation, breath, thought. Not separate things, just occurrences in awareness. Do not search for a center. Do not try to locate the one who is experiencing. Let attention rest on what is immediately happening. A sound arises. A sensation shifts. A thought appears. Before any label is added, there is only this: occurrence. No ownership is visible in the raw event. Now notice how quickly the mind introduces structure. I am hearing. I am feeling. I am aware. See the timing, not the content. Experience first, identity second. Let this pattern become clear through repetition. A sensation arises. Before the phrase, "This is happening to me," it is already complete as sensation. A thought arises. Before, "I am thinking this," it is already present as thought. Do not interfere with this process. Just observe the sequence. Now rest attention on the gap before labeling. That brief moment where experience is not yet assigned to anyone. Stay there, lightly. Not holding it, not forcing it. Just noticing that experience can exist without immediate ownership. If the sense of I appears, do not engage it. Do not reject it. See it as another event arising in awareness. A thought of me is still a thought. A feeling of me is still a feeling. A sense of me is still a perception. Nothing here requires a center to function. Breath continues. Sound continues. Perception continues, without interruption. Now notice something subtle. The I is never found at the moment of raw experience. It appears slightly after, as interpretation. This delay is important. Experience happens, then ownership is added. Let that become obvious without analysis. Just direct observation. Now rest in simple awareness of unfolding events. No need to label stability. No need to define presence. If thought tries to re-establish a center, let it do so. Watch it as movement. It is not an authority, it is an appearance. Return again to raw occurrence. Sound, breath, sensation, thought. No hierarchy between them, no owner required. Let experience continue without adding a subject to it. Not as an effort, as recognition. Notice how nothing breaks when ownership is not assumed. Experience still unfolds fully. Now begin to soften the tension. Let it widen slightly. Not focusing on any one thing, just open awareness of whatever is present. The sense of a center may come and go. Do not build it. Do not remove it. Let it be just another movement in the field. In this way, the solar structure becomes less solid. not because it is fought, but because it is seen directly as it forms. Rest here quietly for a few moments. No assignment, no ownership, just occurrence in awareness. When ready, gently return attention to the body and the room. Movement returns naturally. The sense of I may still appear, but it is now recognized as a layer, not a source.